'Twas the dark night before Christmas. Is that a good intro? Fuck it, it'll be the intro.
Batman Returns is the sequel to 1989's Batman and was once again directed by Tim Burton, who has made so many films: Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Sleepy Hollow, Corpse Bride, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Alice in Wonderland, Sweeney Todd the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, and many more. Tim Burton is definitely one of the most influential directors of our time, and whether you like his directing style or not, he nails the setting within his films. In both of his Batman films, for instance, one of the best aspects is Gotham City itself. He gives so much attention to the scenery that it legitimately feels like a character within the film. The gothic feel, the steam overflow, the lighting, it's all done really well. I'd argue it's one of my favorite versions of Gotham City in any Batman film.
I can't believe I've spent this much time talking about Gotham City as a whole. What were we talking about again?
I'm Batman.
Ah, yeah, that's right.
So like I said, Batman Returns is the sequel to the 1989 Batman film. It was released in 1992 and it was met with generally positive reviews, though of course there are also plenty of mixed or negative reviews regarding certain aspects, such as Catwoman being too sexualized, or maybe Michael Keaton being underwhelming and being overshadowed by the villains, or how the tone seems to be more bright and cheery compared to the first film.
So where exactly do I stand on Batman Returns? Well, before I actually do delve into my own thoughts and opinions on the movie, I feel like I should explain where I'm coming from as a Batman fan.
Now, I need to emphasize that I'm not looking at these films through the eye of a comic book reader. I've only read a handful of comic books throughout my life, and even if I was an avid comic reader, I'm looking at them more as a movie first and foremost. So when Batman kills people in this film, or even the original for that matter, I'm willing to let it slide, even if I do prefer when Batman doesn't kill people. Because at the end of the day, this is simply a different interpretation of the character.
However, you are more than free to disagree with me if you feel that way.
It should go without saying, but Tim Burton's Batman was one of the most revolutionary superhero films for the time. Nowadays, most Batman films are dark or dreary in some way, but back in '89, that was actually the first time we were introduced to a semi-dark version of the character.
I'm vengeance.
So despite my flaws, I still admire the film and what it did for Batman films going forward.
One last thing I have to mention, Danny Elfman's score overall is fantastic. Not just the actual overall score, but the Batman theme in this movie is fantastic. For me, this is the Batman theme.
I mean, come on, there was a reason it was used in the LEGO games. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's finally return to the subject at hand. The film takes place around Christmas time, and Gotham hasn't seen crime in some time. That is until the Penguin, played by Danny DeVito, rises from the city sewers and joins forces with businessman Max Schreck and Catwoman to take down Batman once and for all.
At least that's the gist of it, because there's a lot going on in this movie, but I'll try my best to explain as we go.
Right off the bat, you've probably noticed the film is more gleeful in its tone. Tim Burton was hesitant to return to the sequel because he feels that Warner Brothers didn't give him enough creative control, so this time around they did. And I wouldn't say this is a bad thing. I've talked to a lot of people that prefer this movie as a whole to the original, and in some aspects I'm willing to agree.
In my opinion, Batman Returns actually has more interesting characters than its predecessor, so let's go ahead and dissect them, shall we?
For starters, we have Michael Keaton once again reprising his role as Batman/Bruce Wayne, and he's still good as the character. I still do think his Batman is better than his Bruce Wayne counterpart, but that being said, I do prefer this movie's version of Bruce. He has a lot more charm, he flubs his lines at times, and I do like his relationship with Selina Kyle.
You got kind of a dark side, don't you?
No darker than yours, Bruce.
Now, before I delve into Michelle Pfeiffer's performance as Catwoman, I'd like to discuss Max Schreck, who's played by Christopher Walken, an actor that I've always liked. Max Schreck is your stereotypical corporate bigwig. I mean, literally, look at his hair. His whole goal in this movie is to build a power plant so he can be even more rich, yada yada yada. All he needs now is a big fancy mustache. Jokes aside, I think he serves his purpose well enough in the movie, though I haven't read many of the comics that pertain to his character. He might have more relevance in the comics, but again, I'm looking solely at his movie interpretation.
If I'm being honest, I actually didn't really know where to fit Max into the script, because while he does have some relevance to the plot, he's kind of just not really that interesting of a villain.
It's not that he's bad necessarily, he's just more of a catalyst for Catwoman and the Penguin, if anything. Ultimately, he's just an evil rich guy that's mostly held up by a good performance, so let's just move on. Next we have Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, who is arguably my favorite performance in this entire movie.
Meow.
Selina Kyle is Max Schreck's secretary, and is pretty much a laughingstock that no one takes seriously.
Well, that was very brief. Just like all the men in my life.
She's single, overworked, and only has the company of stray cats that visit her from time to time. However, after coming home from work and doing her nightly routine, which does come back into play later on, she forgets about a task and goes back to work to fix it. But when she sees some of Max's confidential files pertaining to the power plant, she's intimidated by him before being thrown out of the window.
It is funny to think, though, that as a kid, I actually did think that Selina Kyle did in fact die here, evident by the fact that her face becomes more pale as the movie goes on, but this is more of an anecdotal take if anything, so feel free to disagree with me if you want.
Selina somehow manages to survive the fall and goes right back home. Only this time she's more carefree and repeats the same tasks from before, just in a more mundane manner.
I don't know if I can actually emphasize it enough, but I love this scene.
Now, we all know where this is going, but the tension is so well done that when Selena eventually does break, you're both saddened and afraid. Ultimately, she makes her suit and instantly turns on the Catwoman persona.
But I feel so much yummier.
To some, it's unsettling and maybe a bit over the top, but considering that she's essentially lost her mind and has no morality left in her, I get why. Selena has been repeatedly taken advantage of and was pushed out of the window by her own boss, so I can understand where she's coming from even if I don't agree with her ethics. The only person that understands her is Bruce, and not to mention their chemistry is fantastic in this movie. Selena has lost her mind, but in a lot of ways so has Bruce. The mental scarring from his parents' murder left a big impact on him. He just does a better job at hiding his trauma, whereas Selena uses it for selfish gain.
And this, for me anyway, is what makes the relationship so much more interesting compared to Vicky and Bruce from the first film.
Ultimately, I couldn't picture them dating long-term, especially after finding out that Bruce was Batman this entire time. On the other hand, however, Bruce and Selena are really similar in a lot of ways. It's not a healthy relationship, definitely won't deny that, but it's one I can understand from both sides. Especially because Bruce sees the good in Selena that nobody else does. Despite his best efforts to keep her on good terms, in the end she still chooses revenge. At the end of the day, Michelle Pfeiffer delivers an equally great look and iconic performance for the character, and while it's a shame that we never got her back for future films, in the end, maybe it was for the best. Now let's move on to Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin. Danny DeVito as the character is definitely a highlight for the film. His portrayal is everything you'd expect him to be.
He's gross, he's deceitful, he's malevolent, and above all else he wants power.
When Oswald was born, his parents saw him as more of a monster than their own blood. So one Christmas Eve, they take the baby out for a stroll and toss him into the sewer, where he would spend the next 30 years of his life.
And as a viewer, you might initially feel sorry for him because of the way he was treated as a kid, but as the film goes on, you soon realize that he actually is no better than the politicians who run this city.
You gotta admit, I played this stinking city like a harp from hell!
It's a simple case of how the oppressed can be just as bad as their oppressors. We then reach the climax of the film where Penguin takes Shrek hostage and threatens to kidnap the children of Gotham and toss them into a watery grave.
This is what's so funny about this. Penguin's plan is so fucked up that even his own goons question his authority on the matter. Bottom line, don't question the Penguin. You might regret it.
Batman, of course, is able to foil the Penguin's plans, and the two duke it out. But the Penguin falls into the chemically filled sewer water. Selena ultimately kills Max with electricity, and the movie ends with Bruce and Alfred driving in the city. They stop to pick up a stray cat before heading back home, and then fading to black as we get Danny Elfman's iconic Batman theme. Not to mention one hell of a tease as Catwoman raises her head up to the bat signal. So overall, with everything being said, does Batman Returns still hold up? In my opinion, yes, it does. It's a lot more over the top than its predecessor, the villains outshine Batman in his own movie, and the tone might not be for everyone, but I still love it. Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito's performances were so damn good. They did so well at playing their characters that I was able to forget that they were actors underneath all that makeup. Along with that, I do like the subtle change in scenery with Christmas in the background. That's right, everyone, Batman Returns is a Christmas movie. I admit that not every film from Tim Burton is a home run for me, but I've always liked Tim Burton's interpretation of the Batman universe. In terms of writing or comic book accuracy, they're not perfect, obviously, but I still enjoy them for what they are, and if nothing else, they help set the standards for modern Batman films. And that's why, after all these years, flaws and all, I still cherish these films for what they are and what they've done to the comic book universe. Thank you as always for watching my videos, and thank you for continuing to support the Christmas Movie Marathon. It's been an absolute blast, and I hope you guys will continue watching well into the future. With all that said, guys, I want to wish you guys all a very happy holidays, be safe, and until next time, this has been That Guy Matt, and I will see you guys all next time. Take care.